and a very good evening to you. You're watching Times Now Live. I'm Pratibha. Let's begin with some breaking news that's coming in. Vadra aide Bhandari will be extradited to the country. Big breaking news coming in. The absconding arms agent Sanjay Bhandari is going to be extradited to the country. Remember, a case had been filed against him, and now after India's move, Vadra's aide Sanjay Bhandari is going to be extradited. In fact, India has secured the extradition of Bhandari. This could spell further trouble for him. Close aide of Robert Vadra, he is going to be extradited and brought back to the country. There are serious charges of corruption and arms dealing that have been leveled against him. We'll get more details of this. In fact, the fugitive middleman had also sued a French company recently, and now he is going to be brought back to India, and it means that he is going to be tried in the country for the charges against him. He is said to be a close aide of Robert Vadra, and he is going to be brought back to the country finally. This would give a chance for him to be tried in the country. Senior news editor Bhavtosh Singh joining us on the broadcast with the details. Bhavtosh, Vadra's close aide Sanjay Bhandari is going to be brought back to the country. India has now got the permission. When is it expected to happen? Big development there.
Well, Pratibha, huge development as far as the case revolving around Robert Vadra is concerned, but this is just a first step. Sanjay Bhandari is within his rights to challenge this. He can go to the London High Court and can appeal against the Westminster Court and then even go to a superior court. But it's a victory for Indian agencies because all the documents that were submitted by the Enforcement Directorate as well as by the CBI has been in a way accepted by the superior courts in London, because this case was first filed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and then subsequently the Enforcement Directorate had taken up the investigation. Remember, Sanjay Bhandari is accused of buying properties in London worth at least $2.3 million, and this property, the beneficial owner of this property was no one else but Robert Vadra.
Bhavtosh, request you to stay on with us. We have Times Now contributor Danish also joining us from London with the details. Danish, this is a very significant development and also a victory for the Indian authorities who had been trying hard to get the fugitive Sanjay Bhandari to the country.
Well, yes, absolutely. Just few moments ago, Judge Snow gave out that short judgment and said that he has not found any bars to the extradition of Sanjay Bhandari, which means that technically the case will now be sent over to the Home Secretary, which is just a technicality. The district judge has said that the case that was presented by India fulfilled all the conditions, fulfilled all the requirements that require the extradition treaty, which means that India has managed to make out a prima facie case against Sanjay Bhandari. There were two charges primarily against Sanjay Bhandari based on two different requests for extradition that India had made. The first extradition request was made for money laundering, and the second request was made for evasion of taxes. On both the counts, the judge tried out Mr. Bhandari here, and as I have been saying, it is basically the satisfaction of the judge that prima facie there is a case for Mr. Sanjay Bhandari to answer if he was to be extradited to India, and that's what the court has found. More significantly, the judge also said that Mr. Bhandari raised issues about how he will be detained in jail, what will be the procedures adopted by the investigating agency. But India submitted assurances on those points, which the judge found were good enough to allay any fear of he being not treated well or that his human rights will be violated. So that has been one of the key contentions which the defendants here, which the requested persons have used in the past to escape that. But the district judge today at Westminster Magistrate Court, in a very significant move, said that India has managed to prove a prima facie case against Sanjay Bhandari and that he should be extradited to India. Of course, in all likelihood, he will go to the High Court.
Okay, all right. Danish, if you can give us details of what is the legal recourse that's currently available to him. You mentioned that as of now he still has the option of going to a higher court and appealing against it.
Yes, well, that's what the indication we got. I was in the courtroom. Mr. Bhandari was sitting there just few meters away from me in court number 4 of the Westminster Magistrate Court. He was presented by his lawyers who were there. The prosecution actually took a bit of a time to join in the proceedings, because of which it was held up. But this is just the first stage, but a significant step, I must say. The trial court has said that Mr. Bhandari can be extradited. Now the court the case will move ahead to the High Court, where Mr. Bhandari will lodge an appeal. He has to do that within a certain time frame, and I'm sure he has already made the ground for that, because there is every likelihood that he will go to the High Court, where the appeal will be heard. But even in the High Court, it will not be an easy way out. The judges in the High Court will have to be convinced that the Westminster Magistrate Court here heard in law or should not take into consideration points which are very valid and very important. If and only if Mr. Bhandari is able to do that, will that appeal be allowed? And once that appeal is allowed, then that appeal will be heard afresh. So it's a long process, but nevertheless a significant victory for India here in Westminster Magistrate Court, where District Judge No has ruled that Sanjay Bhandari can go to India to face the charges that the CBI and other investigating agencies have carried out against him.
Okay, all right. Stay on with us, Danish. We'll come back to you for the details of what exactly happened in the court. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia of the BJP also joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, this is a very, very significant development. The fugitive arms agent Sanjay Bhandari is alleged to have received payments of over 400 crores from foreign companies.
It shows the zero tolerance that Shri Narendra Modi-led government has for corruption, and it's a very welcome move. And his being extradited to India will also ensure that the real culprits, the bigger fish, are also nabbed and they're brought to books for looting the people of the country. And the Congress party is the den of corruption, and thus once Mr. Bhandari comes back, he will be thoroughly examined, and there would be vital clues and evidence against other big fish also.
Okay, in fact, this is also a very politically loaded development as well, Mr. Bhatia. In fact, the charges against Sanjay Bhandari, also the fact that he is said to be a close aide of Robert Vadra.
The most corrupt family in Indian politics today is the Gandhi Parivar. 3 members are out on bail on corruption charges, and nobody is above the law. The guilty and the corrupt should be punished, and this is a step in the right direction. We welcome the move.
Okay. All right. Mr. Bhatia, thank you for joining us with those details. Let's go back to Danish. Danish, you mentioned you were in court. Talk to us about what the observations were in the court, the developments that took place, the arguments that were made in court.
In previous cases as well, the defendant, which I mean the requested person, usually raise several objections to their extradition, namely that the prison condition will not be good and that human rights will be violated, and that this is a politically flavored case against them, and that they were, forced into making some statements. All of those terms were raised by Bhandari and his mother as well. During the course of a lengthy trial, the trial was demarcated actually in 2 stages. In the first stage, which took place in March, the first charges were taken, and then later on the second charges were argued before the judge, Michael Snow. That said that he will give one final judgment after hearing both the things together that will be merged. And that's what has happened today. Sanjay Bhandari's lawyer had also thought that he should not be extradited because his human rights will be violated. As a result of that, there were some pertinent questions raised in the court, but the government of India gave assurances to the court which satisfied the court in terms of how he will be kept in prison, what will be the regime, how will he be questioned, what will be his conduct, what will be the conduct of investigating agencies once he is extradited to India, and all of that met the test. As you will know that in all the extradition cases, these are some of the common themes which the defendants raised. Sanjay Bhandari was present in court today. Judge came sharp at 10 o'clock, but the matter was held up because the CP stream was not in the court due to some inevitable delays. After which the judge then waited and read out his short judgment. Mr. Bhandari gave him a copy of the judgment as well. Mr. Bhandari is still right behind me in the court here. He's having meetings with his lawyer, and we have already got indication that he will be moving the High Court where the action will now shift. But a significant victory because the court here has demolished all the arguments put forth by the defense in saying that he should not be extradited. It was a significant victory for the investigative agencies and also shows that the paperwork India has done has met the bar Mr. Magistrate Court, because too often we have seen that cases have not resulted in success for India. But in this case, India had also made this a very important case in terms of the black money, because this thrust of the Crown Prosecution Service's argument here was that Sanjay Bhandari, someone who had assets abroad, did not disclose that to the IT authorities, and that it became and all of that ill-gotten assets. There were also lengthy references to these companies in Dubai, in London, and also these companies registered in the British Virgin Islands. So significant victory for India, and it also shows a wider statement about how serious India is in terms of black money and trying to get criminals to leave India for foreign shores and get them back. So significant victory for India. Judge Michael Snow just few minutes ago giving out his judgment saying Sanjay Bhandari still extradited to India.
Okay, all right. Danish, stay on with us. We have senior news editor Bhavtosh Singh also with us on the broadcast. Bhavtosh, the charge against Sanjay Bhandari being, that he had fled the country in 2016 after searches were conducted at his residence. In fact, he has also been charged under the Official Secrets Act. All right, we'll go back to Bhavtosh in just a bit, but Danish, the details that have been provided as of now on the searches that were conducted, the massive arms deal that had been signed back in the UPA era that has now come back to haunt Sanjay Bhandari. He is wanted in the country. The charges against him not just being on money laundering, but also possessing classified information on the defense purchases in the country.
Well, there are significant developments related to Bhandari's role as an arms dealer, as an alleged arms dealer. But the government of India very wisely here focused the case on the fact that he did not disclose his foreign assets. Now, what were those foreign assets? How was they acquired? All of that will, of course, come out. But I must also add that a key thing that happened in this case was in February 2017 when a lawyer, a chartered accountant, a chartered accountant who was closely associated with Sanjay Bhandari traveled to London, and then he was intercepted upon arrival at Indira Gandhi International Airport, where the income tax authorities questioned him and found out that he had a meeting with Sanjay Bhandari where documents were made to show that Sanjay Bhandari does not have any link with certain assets. Now, that was a key document which was also submitted here in the Westminster Magistrate Court, which showed that Sanjay Bhandari has a global operation and also tried to settle the probe by using the services of lawyers and chartered accountants who were in some way his accomplice in hiding his assets away. Now, all those points were brought forward by the all those arguments how Mr. Kapoor was intercepted upon his arrival from Dubai. Basically, the case was that Mr. Bhandari had tried to make some changes.
Okay, Danish, request you to stay on with us. We have Mr. Majid Memon joining us over the phone line. Mr. Majid Memon, big development there. In India will extradite the fugitive arms agent Sanjay Bhandari into the country for him to face a trial here.
Well, I think it's a good news for the CBI and the Interpol's endeavor to secure the presence of a absconding accused person, and a fugitive could now be, once the extradition order has been allowed, the fugitive can be well brought home and be prosecuted and tried and punished. But I think if the trial court has granted extradition, the fugitive will have a right to appeal, and one does not know whether he would choose to file an appeal against the Union of India challenging the order of extradition, or would surrender or succumb to the execution of the extradition order. So we will have to wait and see if the CBI and Interpol should now hasten to get his the proceedings for his bringing back to India and face the trial should be hurriedly expedited.
Okay, all right. Mr. Memon, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. CD News editor Bhavtosh Singh back with us. Bhavtosh, Sanjay Bhandari is likely to come to the country. He's going to be extradited, but of course he still has that legal recourse of appealing to a higher court. But the charges against him, the charges that he's facing in the country are very, very severe. All right. In fact, let me take this across to Danish, who is with us. In fact, Times Now is the only channel not just reporting from the United Kingdom, but also Danish was in the court as the developments were taking place. Sanjay Bhandari was also in court. Danish, take us through the developments and also tell us if Sanjay Bhandari is expected to make a statement there. You just told us that he is approaching the higher court, appealing against this verdict.
Well, yes, I can now confirm that Sanjay Bhandari told me that he will be going for an appeal and that his lawyers will lodge an appeal in the High Court. As you can see, that's the entrance of the Westminster Magistrate Court right behind me. He might come out any moment, but that will take some time because he is in a discussion with his lawyers after Judge Michael Snow gave that judgment which went in India's favor. The trial was divided into two parts. The first part took place in March, where the issue of prima facie was argued. Basically, there were two sets of charges that India had brought. The first set of charges related to allegations of money laundering. The second set of charges pertained to evasion of taxes. Both the cases were then merged, and in March of this year, the judge heard arguments on the prima facie case. Primarily, what it means is that the extradition cases, the judges have to be satisfied that the requested person has a case to answer in the requesting state. It does not mean that Mr. Bhandari is innocent or whether he's guilty. That itself also is a very high bar, I might say, because the judges here have to be convinced that the charges that have been brought against the requested person are very serious, and that the documents that have been submitted show that he has the case has the potential to stand trial, and that prima facie case has been met. That was a very keenly contested fight, I must say. I attended those proceedings, and today the Judge Michael Snow has ruled in their saying that the extradition of Bhandari can go ahead. So as I have Bhandari indicated to me that he will be appealing in the High Court, but nevertheless, this is a significant victory for India.
Absolutely. In fact, he had fled the country in 2016, after which the authorities said that he was in hiding. He was also found at an upscale place in London. That's where he was traced, and now finally he could be extradited to the country. The legal recourse available to him, yes, but Bhavtosh, if you're with us now, you know, the charges against him, put that in perspective for us on why this is such a significant development, not just politically loaded, but also because of the grave charges that Sanjay Bhandari is facing.
Well, two important things, Pratibha, adding to what Dani is telling us. One, that India has managed to seriously fight this case. There's been documents in London court, and they have scrutinized these documents, and they have managed to prove one thing, that Sanjay Bhandari had fled from the country, and that he's wanted in serious offences of money laundering, and that he's also wanted in cases which are covered under Official Secrets Act. Remember, he's an arms dealer who was also taking commission in Samsung ONGC deal, and also in a deal in which basic aircraft trainers were being brought from Swiss manufacturers. Now, in these two deals, he had in fact...
Okay. All right. Bhavtosh, request you to stay on with us. We have Mr. Swapnil Kothari joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Kothari, this is a very big development. We understand now that in a big victory for the Indian authorities, Sanjay Bhandari is going to be extradited to India.
Yes, it is a very significant development, and I'm glad that the UK courts are looking at the Indian courts and the Indian judicial system with a favorable viewpoint. And, you know, they're bypassing all the bogus arguments which all these people generally who are anti-extradition point out, saying that we don't have a robust system, jail cells are bad, our human rights record is bad, this, that, and the other. And this man was involved in some huge arms dealing and had siphoned off a great ton of money, and you know, obviously resulted in a tremendous loss both to the government and also to the public at large. And not only that, but obviously you know, involved in several other crimes which may be related to his major crimes. So the extradition is something which generally the UK courts have been a little hesitant, but I think the past couple of years, with the cases that have been made out against Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi and all of that, I think it has put the Indian judicial system in a very, very nice perspective in the way that in the eyes of the UK courts, and it's more or less a very short time before we see a lot of others also following suit. And hopefully what is more important, as I say, we're keeping my fingers crossed, is ultimately that person lands on the Indian soil. Because still there are several hoops to cover. You can go to the secretary, you can go to the international human rights, this, that, and the other. So I think we are still looking at a year or two more before they actually land up here on the Indian soil. The way, we've been very happy about Vijay Mallya, but we don't still see him yet. Okay. So this is something which we'll have to take with a pinch of salt. Yes, it is a step in the direction. It's a step in the right direction, but a little too early for us to burst our firecrackers.
Okay. Times Now is the only channel that's reporting from London, where Danish was in court as the developments were taking place. Minute by minute details coming in from Danish. But before I go to him, Mr. Kothari, I just want to ask you, like you mentioned, an argument that had been made in court today as well is of human rights violations that he is going to face in India. This is a charge that has been made, and this is one of the arguments that's presented time and again while opposing the being extradited to the country. So how is that going to play out in the court?
Well, as you've seen, that's not really cut much ice with the court today. So hopefully in the future also it won't, because these are the arguments that we lawyers tend to make, because that's what we do. We are paid by the clients, and we have to make all sorts of arguments, whether the sword is actually made of iron or whether it's a wooden sword. We still have to swing it in the air to see if it works or not. And hopefully what has happened is that it has not worked today, and hopefully it will not work ahead in the future also, because Indian judicial system, as I've said, has started gaining a lot more currency across the world. And the way that we have presented cases, and not only that, what is more important is that the Indian government, the current government dispensation, has been very instrumental on a political level, trying to gain brownie points as far as their counterparts are concerned, and trying to put their foot down and say that, look, you may have ruled us several years before, but I think in the short span of time after our independence, in the span of 75 years, I think we've gone way ahead, and our judicial system is possibly as robust or perhaps more robust at times than what your system can ever imagine. Because we deal with 1 billion people, you deal with only some 6 million or something of that sort, or 60 million, I don't know exactly. So 60 million. So, that is something which, has really made a big difference. The political level, diplomacy at political level, apart from all these legal arguments, which I'm sure the Crown Prosecution Service must have made on behalf of the Indian government.
Okay, all right. Mr. Swapnil Kothari, thank you for joining us on the broadcast with a legal perspective. Let me go back to